This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another response to an Ask Prof Wolff question sent in from our Patreon community. This question is from Morgan, and it asks about the bevy of bills being introduced both in the federal government and in state governments designed to give employers immunity from workers who contract the coronavirus while working and who want to get compensation for their suffering, their illness, and perhaps their deaths at the hands of a virus that they contracted in the workplace. This is a stunning kind of effort, partly because it is so naked. Here is an effort that will protect the employer at the direct expense of the employee. There's not even a pretense of equal treatment, fair treatment, treating and helping both sides, not at all. In its way, it's as stark as President Trump was a few weeks ago when he ordered meatpacking workers back into a pork processing plant, threatening them with legal consequences if they did not obey the order. But he made no similar order to the employer in the pork processing plant to provide safe, clean, secure workplaces. It is a bizarre thing to force workers into a workplace without forcing the employer to make the workplace safe. And this has been going on throughout the history of capitalism. That's why we have an Occupational Safety and Health Administration. That's why we have the Fair Meat Packing Standard bill that was passed 100 years ago, etc. Capitalists don't like to spend money to make workplaces neat, clean, safe, secure, healthy, you name it, because there's no profit in that. They want you to work, if you're a worker, at the minimum cost. They want to pay for the raw materials you work on, and they want to pay for your labor. But as you know, what they pay for the raw materials is the lowest they can find. And what they pay for their machines is the lowest price they can find for what they need. And they try to pay the lowest for you, the worker, as well. And that means not providing you with an elegant, pleasant bathroom, but simply one that will do the minimum service needed of a bathroom, etc. So what you're seeing is really an extension of the old struggle between employer and employee, now ratcheted up a few degrees because the employees and the employers are threatened by a deadly virus. The employer is taking all kinds of steps to protect the employer, his, her family, his, her close associates who are in those special rooms with the air conditioning and the thermometer control and all the rest to keep safe, but they don't want to spend it because it's expensive for the average worker. The only recourse, then, that workers in the United States could have to the imposition of unsafe working conditions would be the right to go to court to prosecute if they are damaged by the failure of the employer to take all reasonable steps to make the workplace safe. And in these days, here's what that means very practically. There has to be testing. Everyone in the factory or the office or the store has to be told, public information, whether everybody who's coming in there to work is or is not infected by the virus. And that means testing, not once in a while, all the time, every couple of days, a test. Maybe every 3 days, doctors can make that determination. But you have to know whether you're working next to a sick person, an infected person, or not, and then be able to make a rational, interested decision. You also need to know that the equipment needed to be personally protected is available at all times, provided by the employer, just like other things typically are provided by the employer. It's a part of a safe workplace. If no force with penalties is applied to the employer, it becomes grotesquely unjust and unsafe to deny the employee legal recourse when his or her rights and very life are put in danger by a spending decision of a corporation which, to make more profits, or an employer to make more profits, economizes on safety and health. You really can't have it both ways. If you want to make employers immune, then they have to do things to get that immunity. And that's separate from the legal question whether you should ever give immunity when someone can do a damage to another person, and that damaged person has to have some recourse, some right. What you're seeing in the United States now is another blatant program to help employers at the expense of employees. And let me drive home a simple point. That means you're going to immunize, you're going to give immunity to a tiny minority of the population, employers, at the expense of denying legal recourse to the immense majority of Americans. That isn't democratic at all. Just like forcing workers into an unsafe workplace isn't appropriate or democratic or just. And not forcing the employer to take all reasonable steps, testing, tracing, cleaning, disinfecting, providing protective materials, etc. We don't demand it of our employers, then we cannot take away from workers the only pressure left on employers not to force workers into life-threatening, dangerous workplaces, and that's legal recourse. This is a moment for the American working class to stand up and say, with or without a union, this will not pass. We will not be abused in this way at risk to our lives, to our being agents of infecting our families. Very important issue. Thank you, Morgan, for bringing it up. This is Richard Wolff for Ask Prof Wolff.